Hey y'all, welcome. It's another carburation day at RPM in Racing Roseville. I've shot this video 4 times now, so we're just going to try to keep it real short. The more I try to explain, the longer these things get, and then it gets out of control. So we got our flange. This is where the carb video starts. Us Americans, we can't have too many carbs. You know what I mean? Smell what I'm cooking. Literally with the carbs. We got the big fat flange for the jumbo carburetor, and took a gasket surface, intake surface template off of it, and it's gonna be tight getting it on there. This particular plate is exactly like the one that's on the cart. I just never finished it. This one we had set aside for the RVS, for the old motor. But it's not going to work on the old motor, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So it's going to fit just barely. We'll just barely be able to get it on there. Then I went ahead and while I did this one, you know, I went ahead and took a little paper template off the gasket surface at a little 40 mil carb. But of course, you know, I know what you're saying. Well, why'd you do that, Robert? I thought you already decided to go with the hot rod carburetor, and that thing is fast. Look at it. It just looks fast. Why wouldn't we just go for it, right? What if it's too much carburetor? I'm sure it'll run, but what if it's, you know, it's just too much? We set out to get this carburetor, and we ended up getting this one. The guy's a pretty good salesman over here. He says, listen, you know, we were talking about getting this carburetor for the 250 engine for the project behind me that could be 6 months, if everything goes smoothly in the world. 6 months before we're ready to put a motor on this thing and start mocking those kind of things up. So I said the whole engine needs to be rebuilt. I told him I don't need the carburetor right away. It's, you know, well, $425 300 and some odd euro for this carburetor, and it's just going to sit. And he said, well, if you hem and haw, there's a good chance you're not going to get one. So I thought, well, better have it, and not have to worry about whether we're gonna, you know, not get it because we waited. And I figured once I found out the competition carburetor guy is selling this carburetor for probably another $150, $200 more than I paid for it, I thought, you know, resale value must be pretty good. You know, if we have to get rid of it, we get rid of it. We don't use it. So here it is. I told you I was going to go right to that carburetor. We got the flange. We start looking at things, and I'm thinking, the yellow hole, that's 40 millimeter. That's what's already in our engine right now as it sits over at Rich's house. That's when we were working it up. So it's got a 40 millimeter hole. It was, 40 millimeter was the same size as the watercraft carb. Everything was kosher. This is 40 millimeter. So it's going to line up perfectly with the bore on that thing. What we'll do is we'll take this carb over to Rich's house, and we'll sit it right on the motor and find out where we want the needles and stuff, right? Because it's going to be sitting this way. Angle toward the driver, all that. We'll mark it, and then we'll take our little template and use the marks that we put on it, and we'll line it up with the hole, and we'll transfer our new position to put studs. We're going to have studs in here because that's what this carburetor is going to require. It's got the captivated nuts inside, right? So you're going to need studs, just like on the SSE 175 and the X30 and Super X30 are all stud intakes with these carburetors and that same throttle body. So because there's such a difference in the size of the hole in the existing manifold plate on the motor and the big flange, you're not going to get a good test with that big ledge in there, right? So you'd need to knock that down. You'd need to taper it to 40 mils on the back, on the intake that's on the motor, and 45 on the front. Once we did that, we wouldn't get a good test out of this one. So we could bolt this one on, go through the trouble of getting the little one on, right? Doing all our clocking and drilling and tapping and studding and all that stuff. And run it. Okay, yeah. The things went well. It's good, but could this one be better? Let's find out. Well, then we got to do it all. We're going to have to weld up some holes, some drill holes. We're going to have to drill and tap some new holes. We're going to have to Go ahead and taper this big hole. And if it's not, so long story short, thank goodness everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And if this isn't a good enough example for you, I don't know what is. I made 2 of these. One's on the cart right now. This one is unfinished. It's the same bolt pattern as the old motor in the cabinet there, the RVS. We can't use it on the RVS because this is the isolator from the RVS. If the carburetor sits flat level, that's the angle of the intake. And you add 3/4 of an inch out past that gasket surface, right? And then try putting a carburetor on, guess the news. Now we're into our motor mount. We could very well be into the floor tray. So what we need to do to eventually run one of these carburetors on the RVS is get another piece of plate, probably 2 inches thick, and cut it on an angle, right? Cut an angle in it so it's thick enough on the bottom to angle out. We can put studs in it, whatever we're going to do if we're going to run this kind of carb on it. But that's a project for another day. I mean, that motor will run with the 30 millimeter Dell'Orto all day long. Short course, short track, regular road course. That's a good fast motor. So we'll worry about that when we get some of these projects out of our hair. But for now, what we want to do is make 2 different setups for both the carburetors. We'll use the intake plate on the cart now to get this stud pattern, whatever, set up. We'll probably plug weld the holes that are in the intake from the watercraft carb mounting holes, as we won't be needing those again, and they will literally be outside this gasket surface. So we got to take it off anyway, right? We'll plug weld. We got to take it off to drill and tap to put the studs in, and I think we're going to start with the 40 millimeter carb, the carb that we had specifically machined by the manufacturer, by Tillotson. They made this carburetor special just for me, just for what we're doing with this engine. So why not try it? You know, I mean, like I said, we spent more money on this carburetor than we did on this carburetor. This one was €350. This one was, I believe, €318. Yeah, the bill was in the U.S. was well over $800 once it got here. So we got money tied up in this. And again, us Americans, we love our carbs, don't we? Whether they're Dell'Ortos with whipped cream, or they're Tillotsons with a little sprinkles and and chocolate chips. We love our carbs. So we spend a lot of money on these things, and we're going to give them a try. As long as the world is not, I mean, it's upside down, we know that, but and I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of that. If we can get, I tell all of you the same thing. If you can get to the track, if you got a dime, if the cart's running, you can just get up and go. Do it, man. Go and do it. Do it. If it gives you joy, man, go do it. Because there's coming a time when I honestly believe we're not going to be able to just get up and go. So instead of regretting not doing it, take Puffy's advice. Get your stuff together. Get a carburetor on that thing, and get it to Mid-Ohio. Get it to wherever you're going. Get it to Gateway, right, Jerry? Get it to wherever you're going. Get it to Lake Afton if you're out in the middle of the country. Get it somewhere. Get it running somewhere, and go play with it. Because when all hell breaks loose, they're going to burn this garage down, and everything that's in it, this stuff is going to get destroyed, man. So may as well play with it while we got the chance, right? So that's it. We're going to start with the smaller carb, the 40 millimeter carb, and eventually we'll get the other intake worked up for it. So there isn't any hemming and hawing. I mean, there isn't any, wow, gee, I can't go back. The first one was better. This way, we can swap this right at the racetrack, probably between practice rounds. Fuel line, throttle cable, 6 bolts, maybe a couple flange bolts with this one. And we could swap it right over. So piece of cake. 10 minutes in, it's time to go. Godspeed. God bless you. I'm praying for you. It's a beautiful day. Get out there and get some sun. Get you a little vitamin D. And get out to the racetrack, man, while you can. Take Puppy's advice. It's good stuff. We'll talk to y'all later. Enjoy your carbs.